Okay, so our next panel is State and Local Leadership. I would like to welcome to the stage Anthony Oderas, Alan Claypool, Edward Hanpole, and lastly, we just had a speaker change, Todd Smith.
Thanks very much. Good to see that this is actually working, which at this part of the conference day, it's not a given to expect that it would be. First, thanks everyone for sticking it out this late into the day. Lots of conversation, lots of things that I'm sure are filling your books and minds with ways to go about artificial intelligence as we go into this next era and wave of innovation and transformation. I'm Edward Hanpole. I'm the Chief AI Officer for Public Sector at Alvarez & Marsal, a large professional services organization based here in DC, also in New York and in South Florida. But I come out of commercial industry. I picked an amazing time to actually enter into government work for the first time in my career after 35 years in media and entertainment, serving key customers across media as a chief information officer for some of the largest media properties in the world. And after a 20 or 30-year career all around the world, I decided to come into public sector about a year ago, which I think was really well timed with DOGE and government shutdowns and all sorts of other stuff. But within state and local, there's been obviously quite a bit of transformation and innovation and key things that have been happening which make me feel like this was absolutely the right time to see AI at work. We have a great set of panelists to join the discussion from varying degrees within state and local. I'll turn it over to them to speak about how we are looking at AI, but a few different types of key stats that I'd love to sort of introduce as we make the transition. There's some things that are discussed, and by the way, of course, I used AI to generate the presentation on AI because what else would you do? But did fact check it based upon some of the earlier recommendations. Said that about 48% of agencies use AI today, but 64% of federal agencies do. So in the state and local, it's only about half. But only about half of those that use it say that they're actually satisfied with it. So what we're going to talk about today, unlike the methodology or the vendor-based conversations that we've had up to this point, is actual real-world examples of how the three of you have actually put AI to work, the path you took in terms of how did you select what you started on, what were some of the key things that you did that helped make it a success, how did you measure failure? I do have a personal belief, having spent 3 tours of duty within IBM, the only way to improve your success rate is to double or triple your failure. And with something as new and complicated as AI, you would hope that you're failing a lot, because if you're not, you're really not trying hard enough, or it's probably not AI. So as we get into it, would love to turn it over to you. I will spare you the introductions that you introduce yourselves as we go. Alan, we're going to go with you first, and then we're going to go over to Anthony, and then Todd from the state, from DC. Anthony from State College. But Alan, from your perspective in the city of Phoenix, can you talk about how you're using AI today to improve quality of services, and in particular, the consumers that you actually treat and serve?
Thank you. So as you said, I'm with the city of Phoenix, been there about 3 years. I'm one of several assistant CIOs, and I cover data, I cover software, and I cover the PMO. So right now we're running about 41 projects in this city because of our tech debt. And a lot of those projects have to do with incorporating AI. But we are a very conservative city, and we do not want to violate the trust. That's number one with us, is not violating the trust of our 1.7 million residents and our 12,500 employees. So as we built our infrastructure for governance about 1.5 years ago, we made sure that that trust is the cornerstone of all of that. And so we're very conservative also in rolling out the tools. Through that governance process, we've only rolled out about 20 tools so far. and there's 2 in the hopper, so it's not like a firestorm coming at us.
Is that 20 that just made it through from prototype into production, or are these still at varying states of either pilot, but is that 20 that you've actually gone through the whole process and actually have up and running?
So 2 of them are in the pilot stage, and about 20 have actually been approved. You can go to phoenix.gov. As we've talked about in the conference, our culture is very much about transparency and trust. So you will see that entire list of the tools, what we're using it for, what kind of data is used, and what the output data, what we do with it. And we also have a code of conduct for AI published on the site. Again, very transparent.
Fabulous. Thanks. Appreciate that. In the spirit of transparency, Todd, you and I have spoken a bit about what you've done at the DC level to try and help improve transparency, some maybe by order, some by preference. Can you speak about governance and transparency in the programs that you actually initiated?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Todd Smith. I'm the General Counsel of DC's Office of the Chief Technology Officer and a member of Mayor Bowser's AI Task Force. So back in February 2024, Mayor Bowser rolled out Mayor's Order 2024-028. That is our comprehensive strategy for regulating the use of AI internally. And one of the things that I think is most unique in that relative to other jurisdictions is that while, like everyone else, we have an internal task force for sort of marshaling our technical expertise, we have a separate body entirely, and that's our AI Values Alignment Advisory Group, whose role is to interface directly with the public and to hold regular public listening sessions. And it's actually made up with both members of government and the public. So we have residents from all 8 wards that serve on this board, and they hear from the public directly and are accountable to the public directly at every public listening session we hold. We have another one actually coming up next week where we're going to roll out another one of the deliverables required under the mayor's order, which was a AI procurement handbook, right? So that'll go live. In terms of transparency, I think one of the most interesting tools that's come out of come out of our if you want to call it a municipal AI journey, it's been, we started working with a team out of MIT and Stanford about 2 years ago. They have a tool that they had developed called Deliberation.io, which the goal of it is to help prepare the public before public meetings so that people get sort of cues to help them develop their own ideas about whatever issues are going to be presented. And the place we decided is the best place to sort of introduce, it's a language model tool, right? It's a chat bot that guides you toward with like self-reflective answers, right? Like, so if you say you like A or B or X or Y or whatever, it doesn't try to change your mind, but it asks you to elaborate on why and think about alternative approaches to X or Y that have emerged from other users and all, just to get people sort of ready to talk and ready to have a richer conversation whenever they appear at the public meeting. Because, you know, one of the things whenever you're trying to reach the public that you always want to bear in mind is not everyone has a huge amount of their own personal time to spend coming to meetings, talking to us directly, right? They have their own lives to live. So it's one of these tools that helps us to make the best use of their time and help them best prepare their own thoughts before they engage. And we've been using it now, I think, in our public AI listening sessions for maybe 8 months, and I've seen really good engagement, right? Really searching questions, sometimes really good back and forth whenever we bring people out who are accountable to the advisory group, from not like just vendors or people you would think of traditionally as community leader types, but from just everyday residents that have taken an interest in what we're doing with AI. So that's been our approach, has been like a lot of touch points, a lot of public involvement, and accountability in the form of just public discussion, right, and being open to question.
And do your constituents interact with each other on topics? Is this something that's available through a portal? How does the public become aware of the tool?
So one of the nice things, and we can't take credit for this because this was built into the product before we started working with that team, but one of the sort of other than intuitive features that their platform has is you don't reply directly to other people. You all speak directly to the language modeling tool that helps to sort of develop, develop your perspective in the context of what other people have said. So their ideas are filtered through that. And the whole point, I think there, and I didn't design the tool so I can't say for sure, but from the outside looking in, I think the whole point there is to avoid anything turning into an argument, right, where people sort of become entrenched and feel like they have to defend a point. So you're always talking it's kind of fun. Like one of the nice things about language models is they have no ego at all. So they don't get defensive, and they can be used to present a perspective, and they'll take whatever, however sharp a response a resident provides without it ever devolving. So it's counterintuitive to say that not talking directly to other residents helps to sort of enrich the discussion, but at least so far it seems like that's what it's doing. That fun little design feature.
I love that. It's like having a mediator on staff that, you can speak through me, but I'm going to still translate this in a way that's fair to everybody. I think that's actually outstanding and something I'm going to steal, at least from whatever vendor you use to do it. Thanks for that. We'll come back on some of those points. I'm going to go over to Anthony from State College, Pennsylvania. You've had, a pretty successful run at doing some of these initiatives and pilots. Would love to hear from your perspective, certainly a smaller municipality than Phoenix and DC, but from your perspective, how you've jumped in and some of the things that you've done to get started.
So, thank you. That's a great question. I'm Tony DeRazio. I'm the CIO for the Borough of State College, not the actual college, which makes up half of our population, but the township in which the college resides. I have to explain that to people, or else they think I'm from the college. So what was really important, we have a borough manager who runs, we are a smaller government. We have about 200 employees, an 11-person IT staff, and about 40,000 residents. The borough manager likes to be involved in every single decision. Now, we know that's not practical because he doesn't have that type of expertise. So he does have a trusted staff. One of the first questions he asked me is, what do you know about AI? So I knew that was going to be a driving force for him. As it turns out, before I walked in the door a couple of years ago, there were a couple of vague AI projects that were in the pipeline, but there was no real direction to them. We're going to do this one and this one and this one because the marketing from the vendor said AI in it, and that's a driving force for us. We want to be that innovator. We want to be the innovative government in the area. That wasn't practical because a lot of projects were failing. We had a public chat bot that was not working because the technologies that they were using did not talk to our CMS. We had some road management capabilities that weren't fully implemented that, wow, it can use AI. Just because it says it can use AI doesn't mean that it's properly implemented and that we have the right personnel to use it. So when I came in, I took a step back with my team and with Tom, my borough manager, and started evaluating these projects. And we picked a few that we knew would be small, but would have real impact. For example, we're now using AI to help summarize our board meeting minutes and saving some work on a couple of our admin team. We took another look at the road management platform, and we've stepped back, stopped using it in production, and started testing it the way it's supposed to be implemented in a slow and controlled way. So we're not afraid to fail, but now we're making smarter decisions, we're making more deliberate decisions, and we're just choosing projects that are going to have a real impact either on our workforce, freeing up our staff to do other things, or on our citizens, making sure that we are most efficiently using our taxpayer resources to provide them the best possible borough that they can have.
That's fascinating and consistent with, I think, a lot of the best practices that we're hearing all day and we'll continue to hear tomorrow in terms of perhaps picking that sweet spot, right? And I think we've seen even from OpenAI that doing like note taking and summarization are things that are really good entry level kind of here's the power of AI. I think from our perspective within the industry and at Alvarez and Marsal, we have a history of doing mass transformations, restructuring, all sorts of things that affect jobs at a much deeper level, right? And a lot of what I think we've studied and seen is that some of the projects that fail are the ones that are a bit touchier in terms of the key constituents that actually need to authorize and approve it are the ones that would ultimately be most impacted by it, right? And in which case you get a lot of pushback and we don't like this, we can't trust it, and it's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We've been hearing that as a recurring theme as well. So I'm curious as to, while clients come to us to tell them what they need to hear, not necessarily what they want to hear, and then we can apply artificial intelligence to radically transform an operation where many jobs might not even be necessary moving into the future. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of this, that's the federal shutdown, which is, do you take another look and say, well, how much of these people do we need to come back? You know, did AI, in fact, help supplement and augment some of these functions? Curious from each of you in terms of the use cases that you chose, how deep did you go? How deep did you actually go into perhaps levels of transformation? Or, as we've heard earlier, many of the lessons learned around things like ERP or, you know, some other, you know, major IT programs as history served as the foundation for AI, which I agree, you need IT fundamentals. This isn't like AI is just going to automatically just invent itself. But how far did you get into perhaps role transformation or functional transformation by leveraging artificial intelligence? Or did you, for good reason, start with some of the use cases around just basic transformations where AI can augment versus transform? That might not have been in our prep sessions, but I think that's compelling as we start hearing some of the topics today. I don't know if you have an opinion about that in some of the use cases that you chose.
Certainly, we're only about 1.5 years into our journey, so there isn't a lot of use cases that are selected, like Morgan said, just because it has AI.
Right, right.
So we selected it based on, and we still select it, again, being a conservative culture, based on the business problem, what's the use case, and then what is the tool? If that tool has AI, then we go deeper dive like you talked about and say, okay, what does that mean? What is it LLM? Is it something? Is it going to replace jobs? Because that's a big concern across the market.
And that could lead to success or fail just based upon those who have to decide this is going to work. Right?
That was the first questions as we started doing our brown bags to teach people about ChatGPT and Copilot and all the other tools. Am I going to lose my job because of this? Is it going to write what I need to write? And we said no, but the counter to that is people who know the tool and learn about how to use the tool, like every other tool that we've deployed, will have an advantage in the future. But your job isn't going to be directly replaced at this time. I don't see it in our city, and we're just very carefully stepping through those tools. We have some use cases that we're looking at just adding a tool like VoiceOver to PowerPoint slides using a script at the very basic level. But we're also saying, well, what about public safety? What about planning and development? What about all these other use cases that are coming forward? We're at 20 now. I expect by the time we get back to have about 100 coming through the queue of that need. And just because they have AI in it, they have to go through our two-step governance process.
Right, right. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. That sounds about right. Todd, any opinions on how far you went? I know, because I know you've got some use cases where you've used AI to sort of enhance or build feature functions on top of existing systems. I don't know if you have an experience in going down a level and actually looking at more radical transformations.
Yeah, so what I say, this is a conversation that can be had at a number of levels. I think it's best to start at the top level so that it's not as difficult to follow what's coming after. So what would I say? Human AI collaboration works best whenever you decompose a workflow and you let AI tools do what they're good at. And by AI tools, I mean things that are built on top of neural networks, and that's super important to the rest of this answer. And that humans can do the things that humans are good at, right? So how do we know which is which? There's actually a lot of research in this area, right? And basically, if you can't find a computational environment that admits a self-optimizing agent, it's probably not going to be an excellent use case of AI tools. In reality, no human's job really, I mean, maybe a few, but not very many human jobs at all decompose entirely into computational environments that admit a self-optimizing agent, right? That's just not a thing. That's not how our problem environments exist in the real world, right? But what happens is you can break apart a workflow and look at, what would I say, good leadership here is finding good places where there are good candidates for automation within an existing workflow and automating those, right? And that shouldn't ever really replace a worker, right? It just shifts a worker's interest. And here's a good example I can use because these people have like life tenure, right? So no one will be sweating for them because they're there till they die. Judges, right? The core adjudicative functions, especially under American conceptions of due process, are impossible to automate, right? They can't be automated. I've written extensively about this, right? For a lot of reasons, built into the way we build neural networks, what neural networks do, the existence of alternatives, and if anyone out there likes math, what I'm referring to are called Rashomon sets, but alternatives that perform equally well. Because these things exist, core adjudicative functions can never be automated. But then you take a step back and you say, okay, what can I do to help, like, I don't know, and I've chosen this example because it's not something we're working on, and I don't think anyone's working on, so that's why I've chosen it as an example. But what else does a court do, right? Where do we have efficiency loss in places that can be decomposed to a computational environment that emits a self-optimizing agent? And there's a lot there, in and around like translation, in and around, what would I say, with the user as the audience, but like user-focused refinement. So in other words, like a big place where courts lose a lot of efficiency is pro se plaintiffs and defense that don't. So pro se is a person appearing on their own account. I forgot, this is not a legal audience, but pro se is a Latin term that means like for myself, right? But so it's someone without an attorney. Everyone in our legal system, right, has access to the legal system. So if someone doesn't have an attorney, you still have to allow them to bring a case and defend a case and be able to litigate meaningfully. Because they don't have the benefit of all of the skills of an attorney, courts spend an inordinate amount of time and resources sort of helping them get their claims through. Federal rules are built to recognize this, right? There's a lot of, even in just the rules of procedure and evidence, right? There's a lot of allowance for the pro se litigant. So whenever you build a tool that like focuses on them and allows them to, basically makes available to them resources to help them refine their pleadings, their arguments, the case they want to bring at all, it's no one deciding for them, it's giving them tools to help them improve it themselves. Those savings are humongous. Those don't impact anyone's jobs, right? Like, and what it does, the end result is like more justice, faster, cheaper, with less burnout for judges and people that interact with the courts. So like, I chose that example because it's not something we're doing, because I'm not going to talk anything about like job stuff. That's not my area. I'm just a tech guy. But I think the thing to take away from that explanation is AI tools don't do what people do, but they do a lot more than people realize they can do, right? There's a lot more like spread throughout the interstices of your daily work. There's a lot more computational environments that would admit an AI tool and would improve efficiency than are obvious. It's one of the reasons I'm hopeful for, like, people ask, where are we gonna be in 5 years? I think we'll be spending more on AI in 5 years. The growth, the investment curve will go up, in 5 years. For that reason, is we'll keep finding, and we'll get better at finding those environments to help sort of people do more work better. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does make sense. And I think within 5 years, we're probably going to get to a point where, just like cloud computing, you were no longer really able to call it out as an industry. It was technology, right? And I bring people back to that. At the beginning, it was business and technology. And then it just became technology. And then technology was like, oh, technology and cloud, from server to cloud. And now it's just, you just assume it's cloud. And I think within 5 years, you're just going to assume there's AI involved. You're not going to call it out and say, oh, there's technology, but there's a cloud component. It's kind of like, an AI component. It's like, yeah, it's AI infused because that's what you just expect. But yeah, I think that's a really elegant way to speak about the journey that we're on and sort of how fast things are changing. And I always get a kick out of people who talk about the fact that they've been building AI solutions for 10, 15 years, and I'm going, that's interesting, because it probably wasn't AI like we know it today. Certainly the consumerization of IT, like it did for cloud computing, had a dramatic impact on the adoption of AI because people started using it for the first time, just like they started using cloud in a consumer way, and all of a sudden it forced us as CIOs. I spent half my life as a CIO. All of a sudden I had to create an environment inside the enterprise which was consistent to the environment that they got at home. So you have citizens you serve they have an experience that they get at home in terms of raising the bar, in terms of the expectation around the types of services that you should be offering from the cities and the counties that you represent, that make it hard for you to say, well, we're not going to be able to do that, or we don't have the budgets for it. So we'd love to just, in the time we have remaining, speak a little bit about the budgets. I'm going to assume that your budgets are a little bit different than Anthony's, right? Just because I'm assuming that you're not getting the same pot that Todd's being given or Alan's being given. Would love to know sort of how you manage some of the use cases that you go after with the budgets that you're being given, and how you even approach partnerships and who you decide to work with to help you, because your student population, your citizen population, I am sure is going to be no less aggressive around wanting to understand and use artificial intelligence. Just would love to know how you manage that and some of the ways you get up and prepare.
Absolutely. Great question, because this is the season where I'm worrying about all that for next year.
I had to imagine.
So I don't think I'm alone from those laughs.
Yeah.
So when we're selecting projects, one of the things, I'm not necessarily looking at the technology. I'm looking at the problem that we're solving. I'm not looking at the 1 and 0 side. I'm looking at the DNA side, the human side. What problem are we solving? Some of the projects that we've chosen, I'm going to go over two examples. The first was the note-taking.
Yeah.
The summarizing the note-taking. Now, I didn't take somebody's job away from doing that. I found a way to address 5 years of backlog for somebody to do that.
Right.
I didn't take away their job. I freed them up to do their job. And the total cost of that project was a couple of $100.
Right.
The person's time and a lot of open source code that was well vetted. We are lucky to have Penn State right there in our backyard with a nice AI institute that has been very helpful, and we're really fostering that partnership that has helped us with the budget. But also, as we're looking at actual off-the-shelf products that we're paying for, taking a measured approach to maybe we don't need to spend the $100,000 on a product when we can trial it out and we can do a pilot program for $3,000, and that paid dividends for us. And I'll give you an example of that. We purchased a product that does road analysis for us. So basically, we have people driving around, either driving around taking pictures of the road with an iPhone automatically, because nobody's sitting there driving and nobody's driving with their phone in their hand, of course.
They signed the waivers, they would never do that.
Yeah,
right?
But also using a lot of our GIS data as well, and some pretty recent GIS, some drone imagery that we've been using. And by piloting that and doing it in a small way, we found the weaknesses in the product, and now we can roll it out in a more effective manner. We're spending our dollars more efficiently as opposed to just throwing all of our money in the pot all at once. We're working out the bugs early. So by being responsible with our spending, and frankly, that's building credibility with council so they know that when we go back to them for the $100,000 that we have actually vetted our product, and finding low-cost solutions that are freeing up people's time, we've really been effective in what we've done.
Brilliant. I love that use case, and I love the fact that you're using consumerization of technology, right, and the mass availability and consumer experience as a way of infusing your roadmap, which is helping meet your key constituents' expectations, which makes you a hero. All of us become heroes when those that we serve actually like what we're doing, which is sometimes easy, sometimes formidably difficult. Well, that's great. I think we're probably at about time. I'm not quite sure if we are. Would love to see if there are any questions from those of you that are here. I can see one through the lights up here.
Hello, very good evening. My name is Dr. Muslim, and I just flew from Republic of Ireland to attend this conference. I'm a director of the Genesis Research Center there. We are working to help small and medium enterprises using artificial intelligence and helping them for training and knowledge transfer. But we also looking for the responsible AI and ethics and its policy. So my question is how much you are interested to develop a global level of legislation where Europe, USA, UK, and other partners including China would be part of a unified legislation for AI adoption? Thank you.
That's a fascinating question that I don't know if I'm the best equipped to answer. I would look at someone, I'm looking at you, Todd, you know, DC.
I'm
you
the
know,
lawyer in
that
the room,
It
I
would
guess.
happen here.
Always good to have a lawyer in the room.
I'm delegating accordingly. Yeah.
So the problem with any kind of like transnational legal solution is always enforceability, right? I also, just as a general, so that as a first thing, I mean, even regional transnational agreements are tough to negotiate, they're tough to maintain, they're tough to enforce even when they're in place, right? So to do it like broadly across regions would be an unprecedented success or failure, depending on your perspective on the matter, but unprecedented in human history. I think the last time we were mostly united under one law, it was is the Roman Empire, right? So, and like late Republican Rome, even early, I think Trajan was probably the last to be able to really make much of a claim that he like ruled the world, right? And the way they got there, I don't know if anybody else likes ancient history, but it's a tough road, right? There's a lot of dark passages you have to skim over to get to that point. So just as a general matter, like having a global solution to anything is very difficult. I think the better place usually, or the more realizable place for global cooperation is like standard setting, right? Like what happens in the U.S. under like ISO and those kind of things, but like. So I assume that just because everyone sells and everyone buys across borders, that those kind of standards will develop like out of the market on their own. I know another area where there's been probably the most success in the last couple centuries on enforceability across borders is probably the New York Convention on the enforcement of foreign arbitral awards. One of the reasons that works is the New York Convention is super thin. It's super narrow in its application. It's only like, arbitral agreements between merchants, right? You know, the commercial, it's like the CISG, the Convention for the International Sale of Goods. It grows out of industry and addresses industry-specific concerns. So if I were to guess where we would see things like international cooperation on like the broadest scale, it would be in the mode of like the CISG and the New York Convention, rather than like a comprehensive, like anything like what the EU is trying to do, and not yet succeeding in doing, but trying to do with like a comprehensive AI regulation, if that's helpful.
Okay, we're at time. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
And thank
Appreciate
you for Alvarez and Marshall for sponsoring such a great session.
Our pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to break for about 30 minutes. We'll see you back here for an action-packed afternoon. So 30-minute break. Go out, network, meet each other. This is how we learn. I encourage you all to say hello, and you never know who's standing next to you.